Man, what's going on, everybody? We are here for another episode of Bleav in Kentucky. My name is Vinny Hardy. We got AG Aaron Gershon from the Cats Pose, the QB1, Jalen Whitlow in here. Fellas, man, how's everybody doing?
Oh man, it's good to be home. I feel like I've been on the road all of February with this basketball team. We were just talking before, man. It feels like they've been on the road all month, so it's good to be back. And Lax got back a few hours ago, and good to see the basketball team is gonna not give us a march off, so that's good. And obviously, you got spring football, man. It's a week and a half away, less than 2 weeks now, and like you brought up, it slipped my mind. NFL Combine. Obviously, this is really the one show we're going to get to see Will Levis since the Louisville game. So some exciting stuff. It feels like it's quiet and it's all basketball right now, but there's a lot going on. Sneaky quietly.
You were in the new and improved O Dome, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And you were talking about how nice it is down there before we started
Oh
recording. My question though is how how close were you to over Velociraptor girl that was screaming all night?
my God, I did. To be honest with you, I didn't even hear it and know about it. I do. It's funny, man. That's what's hard about sometimes with these games is you're so focused on the floor and then you're focused on what you're writing and you miss little things like that. Unless you're really scanning pregame. So I didn't see that. And I actually, I'm sure we'll talk about it. The fan grabbing Case and Wallace. I didn't see that happen, but I did see Chin Coleman go at them and start walking across the court to yell at them. And then, he pointed them out, and that's when they got ejected. So it was actually Chin Coleman's reaction to the whole situation. I didn't even know why they were getting ejected. And then, I turned on the Twitter machine and saw, I was like, okay, that makes a lot more sense. And those guys all had beers in their hand and clearly had a few too many and led to them doing something pretty stupid. And that is what happened. So I actually missed the two events that outside of the action on the court kind of got everyone's attention. But that's just how it goes sometimes with how much is going on at once.
Mm, she was
Yeah.
shrieking though, like
That's what I
turned on
heard.
Tom Leach and Jack Givens for on the UK network, and it was a scream, but a
Yeah.
shrill, high pitched. I don't know how she wasn't hoarse by halftime, but I apparently
She
she
just
does this
kept it
every
going.
home game. I don't know how she does this all season. And
Bless her
bless
heart.
the floor, like somebody said today, bless the Florida play-by-play
And
guy.
bless
He's not
them.
doing
Yeah.
it all year long, and I guess every visiting radio crew, is got to hear that. I just
Oh.
wondered, is there? I don't really listen to death metal. Is there a girl death metal band where she can just where I mean, maybe maybe that's a field she can pursue, man.
She must be a freshman because UK plays
No,
down there every
she's a
year, and
senior.
we
I think
haven't
she's a
heard that one
senior.
yet.
She's a senior because Tom
She's a
Hart,
senior.
Tom Hart and them they panned on her during the game.
Oh
And
my gosh,
yeah, she
I
got
don't
her
remember
own little
this though.
15 minutes.
I
She got her
guess you had
15
the
minutes of fame last night.
I guess you had the COVID season, so maybe she wasn't in the building, 2 years ago. But I don't remember that last year when UK played down there. That's wild, man. I did not hear that. The student section was great. The rest of the stadium arena though, it was just not. Typically Florida is one of the tougher places to play, and I think kind of the Colin Castleton's injury, 500, unless they win the SEC tournament, they're not going to go dancing this year. I think kind of the air has kind of been sucked out of the basketball balloon, and baseball, they're the second ranked team in America, though. They choked away a game, allowing 7 runs in the ninth inning over, across the street over at their baseball stadium, which I heard had a pretty good crowd. So I guess they're on the, it'd be fun if UK was that good at baseball where, if basketball didn't go well, you can kind of click over to that and put your eggs in those basket. But that sounds to be sounds like what's going on in Gainesville is that, and also losing every assistant coach to the NFL. That's been happening a lot on the
Saw that.
football side of things.
Yeah, DC's leaving now, going to
DC left for the Cardinals, wide
yeah.
receiver coach for the Cardinals, tight ends coach. I think might have also been Arizona, might have been that Indy staff. I know, those two Eagles coordinators kind of got to their new spots late, so they're purging some college staffs with some of the other NFL staffs already filled up.
I don't blame those guys though.
No,
I think that that college coaching gig, man, is it's a lot of those guys who are doing it, they don't want to do it. I mean, they're doing it because the money's really good.
Right.
So I expect to see, and this is crazy, but I think you're going to start seeing some guys who leave college and go and maybe take a couple years and coach in the XFL or USFL. I mean,
it's a better lifestyle, right?
Yeah. The lifestyle in college football is freaking crazy, man. Like
especially now.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It makes no balance for family life. So if you're a man who want to actually like raise your kids, good luck, man. Good luck. I mean, you do the best you can, but and again, the money's so good where a lot of those guys, I'm sure they say, eventually I'm going to get out. Eventually I'm going to get out. And before you know it, 12, 15, 20 years has passed and you've been coaching college ball. And, look, I had a girl who lived on my floor in the dorm, who her dad was one of my coaches at Kentucky. She told me she only saw her dad when she, it was never like daytime outside, especially during the season. Whether 5 a.m. when he was leaving or after midnight when he got home. That's the only time I expect to see a mass exodus. And I said this when this thing started to change, when recruiting started to change, I told somebody this. I was like, you see a lot of coaches get out of college coaching. Because the couple weeks that they had to like actually spend the money that they make, is gone now. So I think they may have some of those guys may get like 7 days out of the year where they don't have to be, actively recruiting and coaching. And that's just a tough lifestyle, man. So that's tough on anybody's family. So I wouldn't blame them at all. I'm sure obviously the pay is not as good, but if you could be a head coach, I'm not sure what the head coach in the USFL or XFL make, but if you can get to the NFL or one of these pro leagues and make close to 100,000, I'm sure they'll settle for that, especially if they've been in the college game for a few years and they made whatever they've been making. So I expect to see more of that in the near future.
Man, literally, 5 a.m. to 12 a.m. That's a 19-hour day. So literally burning the candle at both ends. I mean, you hear people say that, but that's really what's going on, man.
Yeah. Yep, she told me she only seen her dad. Her dad always had to wake her up to say bye or hey. It was always him waking her up to do that, especially during the season. Now, off season, sometimes she saw him during the day, but when she told me that, I knew right then I did not want to be let alone raising a family. Bro, I want to do some shit sometimes. I want to go fishing and what I'm saying?
You want to live.
I want to live life, but I guess they do it. And, this guy's now out of college coaching now. He's, he's made a good living, but it came with a price, man.
Yeah, and you gotta admit that's why always hear coaches' wives are the strongest women there are, because they are putting up with a lot. They're doing a lot of the parenting on both sides. So yeah, it is a tough gig, man, and especially now. I mean, obviously, it was the story you brought up. It shows you it's been that way for a while, at least for the last 9 years or so, but now with that transfer portal, I mean, I just remember, I can't remember which press conference it was with Stoops. It might have been, I don't think it was signing day. It was the first week of December, like after the bowl game was released, what bowl game they're going to be in. And obviously the transfer portal had opened, so you're starting to recruit, you're having the conversations with your own guys, and you're up against the clock, with the high school signing day. His eyes, man, were the bags under his eyes were like, you felt bad. You wanted him to just go and sleep right there. You could tell he's working his ass off, a million different things going on. So it just feels like I don't know, Jalen, you're a coach, but it feels like coaching football is almost the easy part of that job right now, where that just seems like the easy, enjoyable part, where everything else is the hard, stressful.
100%, man. Those guys will kill to just coach football.
Yeah, and that's what the NFL is for the most part.
Yeah, and the NFL actually NFL coaches. If you add it all up, you got OTAs, training camp, rookie mini camp. But if you add their time off if you add it all up, sometimes I mean they probably get about 3 months off of coaching,
right?
Maybe more. You know, because football season is for them from late July till hopefully February, but
Right.
in most people it's not. But you know, if you add it all up, those guys probably get a total of 3+ months where they don't necessarily have to be in the facility. They don't have to recruit. They don't have to really coach on the field. They get time away from the game, and it's healthy. You know, so
Sure.
I could only imagine, man. You know, you're gonna get Lincoln Riley. You're gonna get some of those guys. The older they get, they're gonna try to escape and get to the league. I mean,
Even Nick Saban did. It just
yeah,
didn't work out.
yeah. It's just natural, man. Like, you know, I don't know how Nick Saban does it at 70, but
Or
it's just
Mac
natural.
Brown,
You
yeah.
know, yeah. I mean, you see Willie Taggart with the Ravens now, running back coach with the
Oh,
hardball.
he's probably so excited.
Yeah, I mean, I would be making, you know, whatever he's making. And shit, man, I don't have to call 17-year-old kids all day. I mean, man, that's that's a lovely life, you know, and I can actually like have a relationship with my wife, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, unbelievable. As y'all know, everybody can go to Bleav.com to get this episode of the podcast as well as the archived episodes. You know, our episodes with guests, episodes with just us, however you want to do it. Check them out. Uh, Upcoming episodes, just subscribe. It'll come right to your device. You don't have to look for it. It'll come right to you. Bleav.com. A Sea of Blue also puts these up on their site. We definitely appreciate that as well. And follow us at Bleav in Kentucky on Twitter and throw little TikToks out there every now and then, Facebook page and Instagram and all that. What do I put the little TikTok of Jalen saying that, you know, I'm gonna come out of retirement based on what that clip last week. We put that out there, and so you know, we put little stuff out every now and then. Um, Speaking of coaching and getting promoting and hiring and all that, former cat guest on this podcast, CJ Conrad, gets promoted from GA to quality control coach for offense. So he's diving on into it. So congrats to
He won't be sleeping much anymore.
He didn't sleep at all as a GA.
Yeah, I was gonna say he might even get an extra 30 minutes. Who knows?
As a GA, I mean, I got a little bit. I mean, and by the way, that clip, you know, I had the kids that I coached and trained hit me up talking about it. It was funny. So it was able to reach a few people. But yeah, you know, when I was a student assistant, you know, we would have games when I was at Easter finishing up my degree. We would have games in Tennessee or whatever. And you know, we would get back at like 2 a.m. or 3 a.m.
Oh God.
We had to be right back in the facility at like 5:30 a.m. to break down the. I mean, you know, so it was, you know, sleep was like golden, you know, if you could get some sleep. So, but shout out to him, man. When you don't have kids and you know you got a chance to, you know, really do it. Hey, now's the time to get into it, I guess. So I'm sure as fast as he's moving up, I'm pretty sure next year or the year after he'll be a tight ends coach somewhere.
Maybe Vince just focuses on recruiting, though he loves his tight ends. Though I don't know. I don't know if he could do it.
Yeah, it's hard for me to see that. It's hard for me to see. Hey, you know, it wouldn't be a bad idea.
And Mike Pryfer was named a quality control coach for special teams.
Specials.
So don't want to leave him out either. So
yeah, that's important that they're taking special teams very seriously this offseason. They've definitely Mark Stoops saw enough last year, and that's good. And it's going to be, you know, I wrote that story I think 2 days ago about 10 storylines to watch, you know, with spring ball coming up here, and you know, I had to include it, man. Finding who your kicker and long snapper are going to be. You feel pretty good about your punter. It's amazing we have to talk about all this, but this is how bad it was last year. But you know, you feel pretty good about Wilson Berry at punter. He did a pretty good job after Goodfellow got hurt, but it's so important to have someone you could trust to, you know, once you get to the 30-yard line to put it through a 47-yarder, take a little pressure off the offense. I think that was, you know, there was a lot of issues with the offense last year, but I do think that part of it was they felt like they had to score 7 every time or 6 because the extra point didn't always go through. But they felt like they had to get in the end zone every drive because if they didn't even if it was a chip shot, man, they just weren't making kicks. Whether it was Ruffalo, whether it was the snap, something was wrong with the special teams. So they got to iron that out. But it's going to be really interesting to kind of see who they roll with at place kicker and then at the long snapper position, because those will both be up for grabs. And as we learned last year, they are they're especially long snapper. You don't really know the kid's name unless they screw up. I mean, Blake Best for those 4 years from I think it was 15 to 19, didn't have one bad snap, and you never really heard his name till his senior day, and you were like, man, he was pretty good. So it's one of those things where that's, I think, one of the important things they kind of iron out during these spring practices, and have someone with confidence built up, heading into summer camp, and then eventually, week 1 in September.
So March 6th through April 8th is spring practice. So at this point, Jalen, is a week and a half away. What are the players doing? Take us into the facility. What are the players doing at this point? Because you got to be ramping up and getting ready, or you trying to get a little bit extra rest. What are you doing? You trying to get some more massages in? Have you already been lifting, throwing? What's been going on?
Yeah, they definitely been. Uh, we kind of talked about this on one of the things, but I'll go a little bit more in detail with this one. So they usually, most people go off like a 6, 7, or 8 week program. A lot of times 6 week program when it comes to strength and conditioning, speed training, all the good stuff, change of direction. And they've been doing stations. They've been posting that. By the way, whoever runs the UK football social media platforms do a really good job with that. But
yeah, they are.
But yeah, usually in the 6 week program, so they'll be wrapping that program up. So they'll start to taper off a little bit in the weight room just to get guys' bodies back a little bit when it comes to muscle recovery, joint recovery. And they won't stop lifting, but they'll kind of taper off just a tad. But they've been meeting as an offense position groups, install meetings. So usually they try to go through install, I think of it go through install 4 times a year. Pre-spring, you go through install in the meeting room and you send guys out to throw just the players usually. Sometimes you have an equipment manager out there to snap and do stuff like that. But then they install in the spring, then they install in the summer based on what the coach wants. And then they install in fall camp. So so they're in the first phase of that install period. Where they're going to install in the spring is probably already in. So now they just got to get on the field and deal with the coaches. So that goes on. Another thing that goes on is just for players, from a player standpoint, is just making sure academically I got everything in order. That's how I used to think. Let me make sure that I don't have anything outstanding where I gotta rush to do at the start of spring ball. I want spring ball to become as fluid as it possibly can, as stress-free as possible, where I can get my meetings in, I can get my practice in, and not have to worry about any big projects or big papers that's due. But also, I'm sure Coach Stoops is meeting with them, wrapping them up, getting them ready for, look, last year was unacceptable in ways. Mm-hmm. But in some ways, very acceptable. We just want to build on it. So I'm sure he's been talking to them, wrapping them up. And, once that first day of spring kickoff, man, it'll be rolling. Coaches get a little bit busier, players get a little bit busier because they're still going to be lifting, still got classes, still got tutors and that type of thing. So, it's an exciting time. It's an exciting time. You got guys who still trying to, gain weight or maintain weight. It gets a little bit harder during this time if you're trying to gain because you're sweating. Obviously, you're putting out more. So there's just a lot of little things that goes on behind the scenes that, most people don't think about, but all in all, in my opinion, I think this is probably one of the most fun times because, you get days off in between spring ball. You're not practicing every single day on the field. So your body get a chance to recover. You're not throwing, 100 plus high velocity balls every day. So when you feel fresh that next spring practice, you feel ready to go. So, it'll be exciting. They'll try to, once the install is in, they'll try to throw little things out there that may have bothered them last year. Like, for instance, on offense, I know we always try to do, okay, we have day one install in once we cycle back to day one. So some teams do like day one, day two, day three, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever it may be. But once you cycle back to day one, you start to add wrinkles to whatever you install. So, and now they'll try to add, okay, last year South Carolina hurt us with this. Let's see this in practice with scout team, or let's see this in practice. Let's ask our defense to give us this look so we can work on this, because we know we struggled with it last year. We're probably going to see it a few more times this year too. So just little stuff like that, man. And it's a lot of strategy that goes into it from a coaching standpoint, but for players, it's fun because you go all out for a practice, get a day off, and do it again. A couple of days after. So exciting times.
How much? I mean, how much weight does it carry, like you said, what South Carolina hurt us with? Because you have Liam coming back, Skang not. Right. Will what South Carolina did hurt them this time around? Will they focus on what hurt them as much, since you're getting a new OC and a new philosophy and all that? Were you going to put as much emphasis on weaknesses and things that were exploited last year, or are you just kind of starting fresh with that? How are they going to approach that?
That's a good question. And I think the way I would approach it, not the way that I've been taught to approach it and that I've learned from other coaches, is that spring ball is all about what we do. But there are periods in practice where we sprinkle a couple reps of, no matter what South Carolina it was, or whatever team, yes, it was a different OC, but some of those players are the same players. So they need to see that again. They need to see it, and how do I correct it? How do I, what's in my toolbox where I can beat this look, or I can, make the right check at quarterback, or I can make the right read at quarterback, or I can, whatever it may be. What's our route adjustment off this? Because usually it's a lot of times it's kind of like monkey see, monkey do. When you see a team have success on you, next year you can guarantee that there's somebody else going to try that, because maybe you have a weakness. Now it's a different OC, so you may not see it as much. But if a team has success on you on one thing, and especially when you got like the defense side of the ball where the coaches are coming back, so whoever has success on Kentucky's defense, they're going to see that quite a bit, next year. So if I'm Stoops, if I'm Brad White, I'm showing them that in spring, and I've probably showed them some pre-spring when it comes to our meetings. So yes, they do want to do that. They do want to iron that out. And you kind of throw a lot of different things out in spring. Like you said, once you install day one, day two, day three, etc., once you cycle back and kind of start to add tweaks and variations off your base stuff, you start to throw different looks out there to see how guys react to it. That way, when you get into the season, okay, our center's seen this stunt, 20 times in all season. So now when you see it in the game, it's not foreign to them. You know what I'm saying? So they try to get those questions answered in the offseason as much as they can, but you're always going to see something new.
And I wonder, it's really hard to replicate or even practice it, but the one offense that Tennessee, or excuse me, gave it away, but the one offense that Kentucky has, or Kentucky's defense hasn't been able to handle the last 2 years is Tennessee. And obviously that's such an important game every year, not just for the rivalry standpoint, but in the division standings and, trying to get to Atlanta. You got to win that game if you're going to get there. I wonder, did they spend any time working on that? I know, they do.
Yeah, yeah, you do. And especially, and I told the kid, I told you I coached one of the quarterbacks at Tennessee, and I told him when I was training him a few weeks ago, I told him, I was like, that Hype was going to have some new stuff in there for spring ball for y'all. Y'all not going to come out and do exactly the same install y'all did last year, because every defensive coordinator that Tennessee's played, and even the D coordinators that Tennessee didn't play, are studying how do we slow this down. Yeah. So they're going to try to adjust at Tennessee speaking. Now, Kentucky coaches, you better, have some time spent to that, because that's one of those things that you cannot replicate. So this is one way to do it. They'll have two offenses, two huddles of scout team offense or whatever, and they'll keep the same defense in there. And this scout team offense, this group of 11 will run a play, and immediately after that ball is completed or the whistle's blown, this group is on the ball running the next play. So that's one way they get used to that. And I'm sure they'll do that, because you have to nowadays. Yeah. And nowadays you got to build your defense off of tempo, in my opinion, because everybody's doing it to some degree. Nobody's doing it on the level of Tennessee, but everybody's doing it to some degree. Even Ole Miss is doing it really well, to where it's a totally different sport almost if you're not ready for that. Because now, instead of getting the ball snapped 70 times in a game, God forbid somebody snapped the ball 90. You got to it's a different ball game, especially for those big guys up front. So you got to prepare for that. You got to figure out ways to communicate. You got to shorten communication, and those guys need practice with that. So that's one thing that I think that I know for a fact that Stoops has spent ample amount of time on this offseason.
Let me ask you this too, and of course, we'll definitely get to the basketball and the sweeping of Tennessee and the Florida game and all that good stuff too. But the unique situation that Kentucky's in now is, you have Cohen here, he leaves, Skang comes in, and they part ways, you bring Liam back. Will Liam double up on, okay, this is what hurt us last year under the previous OC, and will he also go back to stuff that hurt when he was there that, defenses maybe found weaknesses in? Will he kind of throw both of them at the offense? Like you said, you look back at what hurt us last year. Well, Scangarello, that's what caused him trouble. But will he go back to what caused him problems in his initial season at Kentucky? Is he gonna double dip like that?
Man, that's a good question. Yeah, he definitely will. And I think the biggest thing, he won't, again, spring is about Kentucky or wherever you're coaching. So they won't spend a whole bunch of time with it, but they're gonna throw it out there. And I think the biggest thing is he's made changes with his scheme that's gonna be able to better suit them when they see those situations. So he may not go back and spend a lot of time on seeing this stunt or this coverage or this look, but he as all good coaches do, they tweak their scheme every year because the game is always changing. So they tweak the scheme. So now when they see that situation, they're not really worried about it because they have the answer in the toolbox. So that's a really good question. And, and that's one of those things where I would like to be in the room to see how he handled that. And I'm sure he's working on some things that he faced this year or this past season in the NFL. Because whoever the Cardinals may have did that gave him fits, he's going to figure out, okay, if we play, Bama this year and they give us this, how do we handle this? We didn't handle this well in LA. So they may, the good coaches, they may go back and watch some LA film. I know I would, and that's what they get. So in the offseason, all of those guys got binders. So, you go back, you go in Liam Cohen's office, he got a binder of every single team in the SEC with notes, film, everything, personnel. And they watch film all offseason. They take notes. Okay, they did this. So you and we all know this. The GOAT, Coach Saban has a binder of the LA Rams because they played Kentucky this year. This is what Liam Cohen did as an OC against, Green Bay or whatever, right? This is what he did against Arizona. So they study each other to a T, man. We just talked about the money they make. They earn this money. They go into detail. They earn the money. So they take time and get in the weeds of it in the offseason. So I'm excited to see. That's the fun of coaching, in my opinion, the chess match, the little games played within the game. So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely. Oh, man, AG, I meant to mention it last week, but look, you can always plug whatever you're writing on the Cat's Paws, but your piece, Flipping to Basketball, where you ask everybody if there were just 3 players from the Cal era that you could bring back onto this team, man. I think, got a lot of people responding. I seen you, interacting with people, giving you who they thought should be on this team, and that was just a good idea, man. How'd you come up with it?
I appreciate it.
Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, well, I didn't think there would be an NCAA tournament, so I was looking for something, one that just got people reading and wanting to read about Kentucky basketball, because when it's negative, people don't want to read it. And I get that. Obviously John Calipari lobbies for that, but all that good stuff. But it was after the Georgia game. And I was just trying to think, my big issue with the performance they had at Georgia, and obviously to their credit, they haven't lost a game since, was they looked lethargic. I mean, the bench was just, there was nothing, no energy. They just didn't seem to want to be there. The fight was lacking, and obviously we all know the issues, or at least knew the issues that Kentucky had when they were losing games, which was, they just couldn't finish off teams if they had a lead. They didn't hit shots enough. It just a combination of those type of things, a lot of offensive issues, and then it kind of swelled into some defense issues later. But so I just kind of came up with three guys that I kind of thought fit that bill as kind of closers, and kind of had that dog in them, as people would say nowadays. And that's where I came up with Tyler Hero, who obviously you just think of the confidence that kid had, man, with the I'm a bucket stuff. With their, it was taking any big shot, he wanted the ball in his hands. And he obviously met a couple of them. The last NCAA tournament win Kentucky had, they were down by one. PJ Washington has that block. They bring it back to floor on the other end, and it's Tyler Hero, who had an awful shooting game, who drains a three at the end of that game to win it. So, that type of player. I think I went with who'd I go with? Willie Cauley-Stein, just to have that enforcer in the front court, because Oscar Tshiebwe, as good of a rebounder as he's been all year, good scorer, it hasn't been a good defensive season, and they just need that aggressor. And we all know, Willie Cauley-Stein, a SEC Defensive Player of the Year, two-time defensive team guy, 7-footer. I mean, they could definitely benefit from that, especially when you looked at what Castleton did against them. Trying to think who's the other big that had a big game. KJ Williams at LSU had a big one. The Arkansas kid who did nothing all year, that Mekhi Mitchell, he was outstanding. Even Braylon Bridges at Georgia had a good game in Athens. And then I think that kid Jitabo or Jabota, I don't know his last name, the kid 33, the 6'11", 305, he had his career high with 8 points, which is not a lot, but it's not a guy who should be scoring 8 points against Kentucky's front court. So they just need that guy. And then I think I went with Terrence Jones, because he kind of fit the mold of both those things. A great defender, he was an enforcer, and he hit some big shots when Kentucky needed him. And it was just a guy, an energy guy, that Kentucky at that time didn't have. But since I wrote that article, and since I asked Cal about them having issues with the bench, or I guess I wrote the article before the Georgia game, so they still had one more bad game in there. But so I guess it would have been after the Arkansas game I came up with that. But it was just kind of something fun. Again, I was concerned that these games would not, there'd be some apathy that creeped in. But to Kentucky's credit, they've completely righted the ship. At least it looks like it this time. Because you never know with this team. It's just one of those years where anything could happen. But man, the fact that when I wrote that, they had one quad one win and they're up to 5. I mean, it's an outstanding stretch, and you got to give credit to Calipari for keeping the team together. You got to give credit to obviously the players, especially I think Chris Livingston. Mike, we'll have to talk about him, man. He has been. It's an unbelievable jump. It's just remarkable. And Oscar, I think, has been a little bit better on the defensive end lately. Obviously had a great scoring night last night. And I think the guy who doesn't get enough love, man, is Jacob Toppin. What we all know what he went through early in the year. He looked so miserable at that Missouri game. He obviously turned it on the Louisville game, but I mean, he's in double figure scoring 11 games in a row. He's at 6 double-doubles in SEC play. He started the year 3 for 22 from 3, and he is 10 for 19 in SEC play. I mean, he's been a whole different player. So you got to give him so much credit. And obviously, Oscar, the last 2 games, hasn't had his best rebounding games. He's done a good job on offense. I think a little bit better on defense. But you look at Toppin and Chris, you would never know that Oscar only had 4 rebounds last night. I mean, they out rebounded Florida 41-20, and Oscar had 4 rebounds. Can you imagine thinking that before the year you were given that stat line? Okay, they out rebounded an SEC team by 21, and Oscar only had 4 of those rebounds. I mean, right? I mean, Chris Livingston at 15, he's 6'6". He's 6'6". I mean, and then Toppin had 11. I mean, it's amazing the production they're getting out of the front court, and it's not just Oscar. And I think, eventually, and Oscar brought this up last night, and it was a really good point. teams right now are still double and tripling him when the ball goes up in the air. They are boxing him the hell out. They're going to have to start respecting Jacob Toppin and Chris Livingston now.
Yeah.
And it's going to make Oscar dangerous again as a rebounder. So there's a lot of good things going right now. The other thing with basketball, and I'd be interested to hear your guys' take on it. And I think at this point, it is more important that they get Severe Wheeler back than CJ Frederick. And it's not a slight against CJ Frederick. But Cason Wallace is getting tired. You see it, man. He's been he played the whole they all played the whole second half. The starting lineup did last night, but there's a lot of pressure on Cason Wallace. Adu Thiero is a good kid. I think he works really hard. He's made some hustle plays. He is not a point guard, and he is not ready to play at this level yet. I think that was the plan all along, and he's just not ready yet. And they got no other. They're not going to pull Antonio Reeves off the ball, or put Antonio Reeves on the ball, especially with CJ out. So they got no other option other than to ride Cason, and that's why I think you're seeing his shot has not fallen the last couple of games. I think it's just his legs are tired. We all know he has the back issue, so I think it's really important they get Severe Wheeler back at some point, because if you have, even if Severe is only giving you 10 minutes, if you can get Cason 8 to 9 minutes the rest of the game, I think that'll make a huge difference and get his shot back going. And then the front court's playing out of their mind. Antonio Reeves has been steady. I mean, this is the team. It's the results you envisioned going into the year, and I think they're just doing it in a little bit of a different way. But at the end of the day, all that matters are W's, and they're stacking them right now.
And Kentucky's not gonna, shoot a ton of threes anyway.
No, not with Cal. Not as long as Cal's alive.
You're kind of getting the threes by committee. Like you don't have CJ there,
right?
Reeves. Livingston is stepping out and hitting the
Toppin's hitting. Toppin's could shoot them all, man.
So that's kind of offsetting what CJ is giving you. And he went through his slumps as well. He couldn't buy one. He was through a little period of time, and he had the finger, and then so
it just hasn't worked out.
Yeah. And look, he's just been nicked up past couple both years since he's been here. Yeah. So. And if he comes back and is able to give you something great, but they're kind of filling that void from deep without him right now. So
yes,
that's good.
They could use him more on defense than offense right now.
Yeah,
I think.
And back to your article, the pick 3, we were similar. You had
we were.
So did I had Willie, just because Willie could switch and guard every position on the floor.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
he was he might have been the best defender other than AD of the Cal era.
Yeah, put him in pick and rolls.
He was a pretty good high school football player too.
Yeah.
Sure was.
That's right. You put him in pick and rolls, and he's guarding a 6'2" point guard, and it didn't even matter.
So athletic.
You put him out on an island, ISO'd up on a point guard, and I'm gonna stay in front of this dude.
He was a freak.
And I picked DeAndre Liggins. This was pre Livingston becoming what he is, because
oh my gosh,
it's crazy to think. Is it that simple? Does it just a matter of having that dog in him? Maybe it is, because we all kind of thought Toppin was really gonna break out. Based on the way he had been incrementally progressing each year.
He played great in the SEC tournament. Yeah.
This is gonna be his year. He's still not really like mean and aggressive as you would hope. So maybe he could use a little more dog.
But Chris has it.
Yes. And so we're seeing it with Livingston. And that's all DeAndre Liggins did, was go out there and be a dog. I'm going to guard the best player. I don't care who it is. And then if he hit a 3 and stuff, it was gravy when he gave you stuff on offense.
Yeah.
Livingston is like Liggins with a little better offense. That's the way the way he's trending right now.
Yeah, it has been unreal. I mean, and Cal compared it to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and obviously they play different positions, but I get the point, because Chris started the year. I can't remember if he was a starter at all at the beginning of the year. I think he was for a bit, but obviously Shai came in. He's the backup point guard to Quade Green, and you couldn't sit him. I mean, he ended up being the best player on that team, even better than Kevin Knox, in my opinion. And Chris, I don't know if he's ever going to be the best player on a team that has Oscar Tshiebwe on it, but he plays with the most energy. He plays with the most dog. He works harder than anyone on that team, man. I mean, it has been. My whole thing with him is I always saw the potential. I thought it was going to be Bryce Hopkins 2.0, where he doesn't get enough playing time. Next year, you look at the class coming in, it might be, the playing time might be questionable again next year. He's going to go somewhere else. He's going to be a star. Now I'm like, is this kid going to be here because he's going to be in the draft, or is he, what's his deal next year going to be? Because this kid is, it's unbelievable, man. He's 6'6", and he's grabbing 15 rebounds. I know Florida was out without Castleton, but no, there's not many guys who are 6'6" grabbing 15 rebounds in an SEC, in a D1, and any level of basketball. It's just any level of high level basketball. It's not happening much. And as a scorer, I think the biggest difference from him is, his 3-point shot, he'll give it to you a little bit. If he's open, he hits them. At the beginning of the year, his biggest struggle was he would, try to take a guy on the dribble. He would either miss horribly, rush the shot up, or he just would never get it up. Now he's getting it up and he's making it, whether it's over you, whether it's making you miss. He is putting the ball on the ground, going to the hoop, and he's scoring. And he looks like a big guy doing it. And he's 6'6". And the offensive rebound he won the game yesterday. I mean, that game was ridiculous, where every time, Florida, to their credit, man, without Castleton, they just dug out of every hole. Kentucky's up 15. Florida takes the lead into halftime. Kentucky starts the second half on like a 8-0 run. Florida goes back up by 1. I mean, Florida, they refused to lose, to quote Cal yesterday. And the game, I think it got back to 4 points. Maybe it was even 3 points. And you got a minute and a half left. Reeves misses a wide open 3. Who's right there? Chris Livingston. He puts it in and draws a foul, jumps over a defender, grabs the rebound. Just it's special, man. It is really what he's been doing it's been as fun to watch as any Kentucky player individually, probably since, what Quickly and Richards did. Obviously what Oscar did last year, but just the fact that you add the offensive element to it, it's as fun as we've seen in a little bit. It's been a real treat to watch Chris Livingston and how hard he plays. It's been, all 3 of these games that they've won, he's had 2 double-doubles in them. He had the double-double against Tennessee. He had the double-double last night, and against Mississippi State, he got pulled out early in the first half because he kept allowing backdoor buckets, comes back in the second half, and he played like he has been these last 2 games. I mean, he could have had a double-double if he played the way he did in the first half, against Mississippi State. And he had a similar play. I know he hit a couple free throws to ice the game against State, and I think he had an offensive rebound in there too, where he drew a foul. I mean, he's just been a beast, and it's hard to believe he's doing it at 6'6", which, it's taller than the average human, but he's jumping over guys who are taller than him. He's out rebounded. Oscar, going into the Tennessee game, had only been out rebounded by a teammate twice in his UK career, and I know one was definitely Toppin. I think they were both Toppin. Now it's been, Toppin and Chris both did it to him last night, and Chris has done it 2 games in a row. So it's really special what that kid's doing.
I don't even know where y'all start when it comes to picking like top 3 guys, out of Cal's.
I know there's so many of them.
Yeah,
it's hard. That's why, and that's why I made the rule like no obvious ones, like no Cat, no AD, no. I even would say Kid Gilchrist is a little too. Any of the guys were like top 3 picks, like get out of here. That doesn't count.
Willie Cauley-Stein came in my class. And I remember one day we were all in a rec playing basketball. I'm like, how the hell do you get a shot over this? Like, how do you get a shot over this? I mean, first of all, he's quick. He can move laterally. He got good lateral quickness, good short area quickness, good bounce, quick bounce. He's 7 foot tall with super long arms. I'm like, how do you get – like, that's why I have so much respect and admiration for guys like Steph Curry and Chris Paul and the shorter guys in the league who can get their shots off. I'm like, how do I get – because I play high school basketball, but I didn't play my senior year. So I remember this was my freshman year. I was 2 years removed from actually playing basketball. They had some of the guys were in there playing football and basketball guys. And I'm like, I don't even know how to get I can't get my shot off down here. It's ridiculous. It's you literally getting your shot off amongst trees. So he would have to be you have to be one of my top 3 guys too. Just on sheer athleticism and size. I mean, you're gonna get consistent play from him just off what he brings to the table. So, but yeah, I can't even start to pick the last 2. I don't know where to start.
Yeah. And it was the thing about it, like you said, Jalen. You know, if you go and play pickup or go to the park in your town or whatever, and you get to cooking and having a good game, and think you something. Then when you're in front of a legit high level college NBA player who can be 3 or 4 steps off of you in case and play your drive and can still get to your shot.
Yeah, that's
you have nothing. You think you something until you run up on somebody that can do that. And so like I'm with you, man. To have respect for somebody that can attack that and score on that and use the angles to offset all of the advantages this guy has, it is crazy, man. It's crazy.
I'm 6'2". This dude 10 inches taller than ain't much I can do.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was Kevin Durant when he was with Golden State. You know what? No, I found it now. It was Draymond Green, and I remember he said that even though they were terrible, the Sacramento Kings were the hardest team to play because he had to deal with the speed that Willie Cauley-Stein had, and no big in the NBA could move like that. And that was, it's not like he had the greatest NBA career, Willie, but that just tells you a guy who doesn't get, we all know Draymond Green, he doesn't give much respect out. There's not much of that with that guy. And I remember him, kind of talking about how Willie is one of the toughest guys to face in the Kings with, they had De'Aaron Fox at that point as well, with their speed. It just brings a whole different element. And Kentucky, man, if they had a guy just with half the speed of Willie did at that size defending this year, it's a whole different team because, as annoying as it is that the offense kind of is, I know they hit 82 last night, but I think that was their highest SEC total. For the most part, they're mid to high 60s, low 70s. And it's frustrating because you see Alabama goes out and scores 100 every night. You see Mizzou explodes. I mean, it's frustrating, but the efficiency numbers are really good because they don't take that many shots. They're kind of like we were talking about, they don't take that many threes. They find their shot and they take their time. So they're a very efficient offense. But you look at the defensive efficiency and some of the defensive numbers, and it's going to end up being the least efficient defense of the Cal era. So, and I think a lot of that can be attributed to, Oscar having a down defensive year, Toppin not being that aggressor on defense that, we kind of were expecting going into the year. And Chris is still, a freshman. He makes a lot of mistakes on the defensive end. It's more so the rebounding and offense that's kind of, got him going here. But, this is not a great defensive team that could really, really use a presence that hopefully next year Aaron Bradshaw is going to bring. I think that's exactly the type of guy they need. It's just a matter of will it pan out.
Mm-hmm. And to your point, Aaron, about Oscar, I think he said last night teams are still triple teaming him and boxing him out. Well, Jalen, that's going to get to a point where eventually it's like you double and triple teaming Aaron Donald. Well, everybody else on that D line should be feasting, and now Toppin and Livingston and all these guys are stepping up and taking advantage of one-on-one matchups or not getting looked at all in the scouting report, and now they can step up and make teams pay.
Yeah, I said if it seems like ever since I've been watching Cal coach at Kentucky, if they are hitting shots, they're one of the best teams in the nation. Top 5. If they can consistently hit shots. Now, this team top 5, I don't know, but if they can consistently hit shots, they give themselves a chance to make a run. I really believe that because you got a guy like Oscar, in there. I mean, you take a lot of pressure off him as far as scoring, and you can, he has the awareness to kick the ball back out and move the ball around, and guys are, hitting open shots. It's just obviously we see, now they're an extreme example, but the Golden State Warriors, you're hitting shots, man. It's almost like, when you're not hitting shots, it's like an offense that can only run the ball. The only offense that I've seen win bowl games that can only run the ball is Kentucky. So you got to be able to throw the ball around, and you got to be able to hit shots. You got to be multidimensional. If they can do that, I mean, I think now you'll start to see Oscar have even bigger games because the pressure's not all on him. When you got the whole team focusing on you because you're the guy, but you got three other guys who will hit an open shot. That changes the ball game. Now guys got more energy on defense. It's a snowball effect. So hopefully they can keep that up and get guys healthy and hit shots. And hopefully they get those guys back, rather soon so they can kind of get the chemistry back where it needs to be. Because every time you get a new guy back up in the lineup, you got to almost recalibrate the chemistry. Because some guys are getting more touches, some guys getting less touches. Guys are guarding different positions, so it changes. So hopefully they can keep that up.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's funny you said that about the chemistry. Cal even mentioned, like, when CJ and Severe get back, like they're not taking time from Chris Livingston. That's kind of what it looked like it was going to be, right? That's kind of what it was. Chris was only playing like 19 minutes a game, and a lot of those minutes were CJ's. I know they would both start together, but you'd quickly put Antonio in, and Antonio was your sixth guy off the bench, and it was kind of Chris the odd man out. So, and we had that for a while, their most efficient lineup. Chris wasn't in it. That's never going to happen again this year. That's just not going to happen. Chris is always going to be on the floor as much as possible. And, he played 39 minutes last night, and he played his best ball at the very end of the game. So it's going to be really interesting to see what the rotation looks like, when those two guys are back. I do think it's really, really important they get Severe Wheeler back. It'd be great to have CJ too, but I do think Severe is probably the more important of the two, just because of the fast break ability he gives you, but more so importantly to give Case and Wallace a blow every now and then and not have to put pressure on a Duthiero. But the other thing, man, and the fact that they're playing this way right now, and you talked about the potential if they keep hitting shots and all that good stuff. If you're going to pick a year to have a slow start and make the tournament, it doesn't matter where you are, it is this year. I mean, college basketball is wide open. And I was saying on the radio show Monday, and I don't want to get too far into the rabbit hole with this Alabama situation, but I said on the Big Blue Insider Monday that I do every Monday with Dick Gabriel, that the only team in the country I would go into the NCAA tournament afraid of, if Kentucky is playing the way they are right now, is Alabama, because they just do everything. They're the best team in the country, in my opinion. And we'll see what happens, with the distraction, everything going on. If there's hopefully some movement being made and guys having to sit out, whatever. But it's a wide open field. I mean, there's just no matchup where I'd go in, and it goes both ways. I mean, you could say, Kentucky's not that great, and anyone they play could feel good about beating them. And I'd agree with that. But same goes with this UK team, man. As long as you get in this year, you have a pretty good shot, in my opinion, if you're kind of like one of those 1 through 12 seats. I mean, really, it's going to be a nuts year. I wouldn't be surprised if Tennessee, if they run into a good offensive team, if they go down first weekend, if not first round. Purdue, the way they always play in the tournament, wouldn't be surprised if they're gone after the first weekend. I mean, it is going to be, I think Kansas is probably kind of trending in that Alabama territory where I think they're really elite and probably a little bit above everybody else. But the fact there's only like one or two of those teams, it just says a lot. It's kind of similar to 2014, which is a really good year to compare to, and Kentucky hopes to have, where it was a wide open field and UK got really, really blessed with having a Wichita State team that hadn't really gotten tested, and they were able to poke them out. Maybe if they match up with Houston as the one, that could happen, because the American Athletic Conference is not good at basketball anymore. That's part of the reason Houston's heading to the Big 12. So it's going to be really, really fascinating to see how the bracket looks. But as long as you're not like you're not an 8 or 9 and you have Alabama in the second game or Kansas in the second game, I feel good about Kentucky getting the second weekend if they play like this.
This is the most excited I've been to watch the NCAA tournament in years.
It's wide open.
Honestly, like the last 2 years, I've been like, if I catch it, I'll catch it. I was in New Jersey last year during the SEC tournament, and I started to watch it, and I started to get captivated by it. And I watched the game. It was as many games as I can. but I wasn't looking forward to watching it. But this year, I'm actually looking forward to watching the games because I know literally anything can happen, this year. So I think you got about 14 teams in America that could potentially make a run for the next championship game.
Absolutely.
I really do believe that. And you got in 6 or 7 of them, probably 6, maybe 5, reside in the SEC. So I'm anxious to see what happens because like I said, anything can happen, and this is the most fun time of the year, really, if you're a basketball fan.
Yeah, it is. It is going to be the NCAA tournament's going to be like. I hope anyone filling out a bracket, including probably all 3 of us, they're going to be ugly. They're going to be ugly because it is just. You never know, man. I've never seen a year where there's just not that team where even like 2019, and I know they didn't win. You went into that season and you were like, yeah, Duke, Zion, Barrett, Reddish, they're winning it all. Like no one's touching them. And obviously it didn't go that way. I think that was the year Virginia came back and won after they were bounced by a 16. But there's just not that team this year. And again, I think it might be Alabama. We'll see what happens. Kansas is pretty damn good. But like you said, Jalen, there really are like 14 teams in this country, a lot in the SEC, a lot in the Big 12 that can do damage. And I wouldn't be surprised if some of those teams in the Big East too, like a UConn, like a Xavier, like a Providence can make a run. Marquette even. It's going to be UCLA is really good. I mean, it's just going to be it's going to be mass chaos. You're going to have again, the brackets are going to be ugly, but it's more fun that way, in my opinion.
Yeah,
and got to get which Aaron we did episode with Travis
Yeah.
who played for UCLA. And I'm gonna go on the record. Got to get him back on here because he was talking trash. UCLA won, and then
I picked UCLA. He's like, "Oh, you're just being nice to me." I'm like, "No, you wait. Kentucky's not in a good place right now." They weren't.
UCLA won, and then he was ripping me. He said, "See, you didn't have me back on because the Bruins won." So I'm gonna have him back on over the next few weeks to chop it up with
Tournament
us.
time,
That way he can't keep saying, "Hey, you're not having me on because UCLA beat Kentucky." So
they would have played They would have played. What is it? I can't remember if it would have been the Elite 8 or Sweet 16 last year if Kentucky had taken care of business.
Yeah. So definitely this year's winding down. Got Auburn, Vanderbilt, and then that trip to Fayetteville, which is not going to be easy. Won't be as daunting if they keep playing like this. But if when they played in Lexington, it looked like, wow, they're going to get blown out when they go back to Fayetteville. Even worse than the 15-point game it was in Lexington.
Yeah, it didn't look pretty.
But,
and
you said it, Aaron. They've started to turn the corner. Once lost at home in South Carolina, and then they beat Tennessee. Let go of the rope again, and then they had to refocus. And it's been such a weird.
It's been crazy. The only reason I'm more optimistic this time is number 24, Chris Livingston. I mean, they didn't have this. They didn't have this type of threat when they were going through the struggles. When they lost that game to Arkansas, they lose to Georgia. I mean, remember that Georgia game? Chris was taken out because he could not defend in that game. They were going backdoor on him all day, and he has been these last 3 games. If they get this Chris Livingston the rest of the way, they're a threat, man. They're a legit threat. And looking at those last 3 games, Vanderbilt was starting to look pretty scary, and then they laid that egg against LSU. So, that kind of did that. But Auburn's not playing well. The one thing that Auburn has is the big from Moorhead that Kentucky actually recruited, who ended up going to Auburn out of the transfer portal. I think is it Brahmi? Trying to think of his name off the top of my head, but he is one of the better bigs in the SEC. So it'll be interesting to see how Oscar Tshiebwe can handle him. Vanderbilt is going to be it's going to be the biggest senior night in Calipari's time. He had like 6 seniors. You're not even going to be able to get Brandon Canada a start. Maybe they'll probably figure it out. Usually get the walk on a start. So it's going to be, and I guess Brandon got put on scholarship. So we'll see what happens on senior night. And it's also going to be kind of weird because guys could come back because of that COVID year. So we'll see what happens there. And then, like you said, the trip to Fayetteville, which Could only at this point, if as long as you don't screw up again, now that Auburn's going to be a quad 2 and Vanderbilt, that Arkansas game will just be for seeding. So, obviously it'd be big to win it. Won't be the end of the world if you lose it. But as long as Kentucky goes 2-1, they will be the number 3 seed in the SEC tournament. And that's a pretty good spot to be.
Yeah, you'll take it. You'll take it.
Especially because A&M, I like A&M, but Kentucky matches up well with A&M. And I feel like they could handle them in a 2-3 matchup there.
And already beat them once.
Right. That's a good matchup.
Now, February 28th through March the 6th, NFL Combine. So when we reconvene next week, when we got another Wednesday basketball.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get to talk a lot of Will Levis because we have not seen him throw a ball. We have not seen him do anything since that Louisville game.
Right. So see what he's going to do. And looks like it's set up. Whatever he does, I mean, he'll probably wow him at the Combine.
I hope so.
Size, strength.
Interviews.
He's going to interview well. He's going to check all the boxes. There's still those out there trying to diminish him because it's Kentucky and Kentucky's still on the national scene. People think negatively about that. So you got, if Will Levis goes above.
Remember when Josh Allen was from Wyoming?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying he's going to be Josh Allen. That's a very high bar. But, yeah, it doesn't always result that way. I mean, look, Jared Goff, never had a winning record in college. And I'm not saying he's a star, but he's a serviceable NFL quarterback that took a team to a Super Bowl. If he has a Jared Goff career, it's pretty damn good.
He's a good NFL quarterback. He had a good year this
year. He did have a really good year. He had a resurgent year. And so, look, he doesn't have – I know people are going to bust on him. Like you said, Vinny, Kentucky doesn't have that national, respect that, Ohio State and Alabama do. And those are the guys he's going up against. But I want to see him do well. He's an easy kid to root for, an easy kid to like when you're around him as much as I was able to last year.
Yeah, I think he'll do well. He'll wow people. Like I said, he's gonna do well in those interviews. If I had to guess, he won't run.
I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't happen.
I guess he won't run. He won't jump. He won't do any of the field drills. He'll throw. And they'll come to the pro day, and he'll throw. He'll put himself in the first quarterback pick after the draft. I really do believe that. And
I think so too.
Because they'll love the way. I mean, they love, what he's done so far, his intangibles, his tangibles, kind of the leadership and all of that. So he'll put himself in that first. And then now you got, people talking about Anthony Richardson potentially being a first quarterback pick. I don't see that. I've never seen it. I would have
loved for him to do one more year at Florida, man.
I said the same thing. Yeah, I said the same thing. So, we'll see what happens. I think, I think all that stuff will go well for him. This is, it's set up for him to, potentially get drafted first. First quarterback off the board. So
yeah, I was on a Texans podcast today. They got the second pick in the draft, and they had me on asking all the Will Levis questions, just all the stuff about him, and so this is where we are because it could, Aaron. We thought with the way things were with your Giants, we thought Daniel Jones was gonna have a bad year. We thought your Giants would be in position to be looking to take him.
He's going to make Kirk Cousins money, and he deserves it.
Yeah,
after the year ahead,
the Texans. These people from all these cities who have high draft picks, Levis is going to be right there on their lips. They're going to be
and I'm sure we'll get to it a lot more when the draft gets closer, but it's going to be really interesting to see what the Bears do at that top spot and how that affects, what happens with Will, because, I assume they're going to hang on to Justin Fields. I feel like that, they're not going to, it's a pretty big gamble. I know he has to get better as a passer, but he's a pretty special athlete. They'd be pretty dumb to move off him after 2 years. Assuming they trade that pick, it's going to be really interesting to see, one, who moves up, and two, what guy they're moving up for, and if it's Will or not. And if it isn't Will, does it make it the guy for the Texans? Does he fall a little bit? It's just gonna be so intriguing. It's definitely a different feel when you have the quarterback of the team you covered / went to school, watched. It is gonna be It's gonna be cool. I think it's a huge day, really, not just for Will, most importantly Will, but just for the UK program as a whole.
Yeah,
I don't think Devin Leary's here without what Will Levis did. I really don't.
for sure. And y'all talked about another year if Anthony Richardson had come back
Yeah.
another year at Florida. I told them on the podcast, a lot of people are going to want to judge Will Levis based off of last year under Scangarello, and just going to look at the decline in the numbers and look at him on the surface. Look at him on his first year, and I lean towards imagine if he'd had another year under Liam going and more receivers. All he had was one Dale. You imagine what could have been, and
Really, more so
that's
the
the way I
offensive
look at
line,
it.
man. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
you had three NFL players on that offensive
that's
line in
right.
that first year, including
Exactly.
the best center.
Yeah,
Look how good Luke Fortner was in the NFL, let
that's
alone
that's
college.
what I told him. I said, y'all played Fortnite twice a year, being Texans fans,
Yes.
and he was on the line blocking for Levis. Levis last year under Scangarello, and another Texans analogy, I said, the offensive line was terrible. Last year would put y'all in the mind of y'all's first year under David Carr when he got sacked a billion times
Yeah.
the first year that the Texans were a franchise. That's what was going on here last year. And, they kind of knew what I was talking about. Because
Can I give you a scary thought? D'Amico Ryans and Rich Scangarello have worked together. What if D'Amico Ryan still has a quarterbacks coach slot open?
we
I
Yo,
mean, I heard Rich interviewed for the offense coordinator job at Boston College. I think that's already been filled elsewhere. But yeah, man, I've just been kind of thinking about where, Rich could have his 1 year and then go somewhere else. That's what he likes to do. And he was with the Miko Ryans in San Francisco. Houston needs a QB coach, and they just hired an offensive coordinator from that San Francisco staff who was with Skang as well. So I don't know, man.
I can see that. I can see that happen. And I think I think he'll be a better pro coach in college.
I think so too.
His
I think he
style,
is.
yeah, he's a better pro coach. I mean, he's just not from what
Man,
I never met the guy before. What I heard and what I can see, not
you
really
heard
a
his SEC comment, right?
personality. Yeah,
He said he didn't know how hard it was going to be in the SEC. I mean, he's an NFL coach. He understands the NFL. He knows how hard that is. He didn't understand that the SEC is if there was a triple A, man, if there was a triple A, that's what the SEC is.
yeah.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. So depending on when we record next week, we might have some combine day 1 or 2 to talk about.
Yeah.
Got another Wednesday basketball game, but we'll be
Ugh.
back next week to
Last one.
Yes, it is. So we'll be back to chop it up again and talk a little football, a little basketball, all things UK like we do, man. Appreciate Aaron Gershon, Jalen Whitlow bringing the knowledge each and every time. Y'all continue to check out each and every episode, and we'll be back with another one next week. For the fellas, this is Vinny Hardy. It's been another episode of Bleav in Kentucky, and we'll catch y'all next time.